Hey Danny, this is Jasmine with the Academy of Animated Art, and I am here to give you your feedback. Um, One, I'm loving the update, really nice. I saw that you mentioned I can see that you added more of like a graham cracker texture here. I love the little pathway, the interest that you created, and I see you modeled these separate pieces of geo, which is awesome. It looks so much better than before. A couple things I will note that you mentioned this sugar pass. Well, one, the textures look completely different than they did before. So I think it's more than was that only the sugar pass, I guess is my question, or is there something more? Because it seems like much smoother and simpler. It looks like you brought down the displacement here, but I'm wondering, did it affect it up here? Because I did kind of like it before, to be honest with you. Like, it just had more texture to it, felt more organic, I want to say. So if you can bring back some of that. And then to answer the question now, you said about the sugar pass, I saw you were talking about something about Roto in Nuke, and I'm curious now what the sugar pass is, because what I envision the sugar pass being is maybe like a black and white mat, or a black and white mat that you rendered on these trees and rendered them out so they would track along with the scene. And you could do it a couple of ways. You can then, do a separate pass with the sugar texture, let's say just on these trees, and then in composite you can comp it together using the mask, so you can kind of control like how much sugar you see in there. So that's one way that would work for that. Another way is to do it all within the render too, with kind of like a layered shader. To do that same kind of thing, you wouldn't get as much control, and it'd probably be a little bit heavier to render. So I'd probably recommend the other way. Another way is actual geo, of course, like you kind of did with the sprinkles, but that might be heavy. If you want to do more like stylized pieces of geo on here that kind of mimics kind of like a more like a rock sugary thing, that could work if you want more stylized, but I probably wouldn't recommend that considering what the style frame you had going on there. So those are a couple ways. So I guess I'm confused why you mentioned doing rotos and tracking in Nuke, and what exactly you are doing that would require tracking. The materials class does not have tracking. I'm not sure, now that I'm thinking about it. I'll have to refer back to the Nuke class if there's tracking in there. On a personal level, I hate tracking. It's like its whole different animal, but it is definitely part of compositing. So I'll take a look there to see if it's in there. But that can also become like a little bit more advanced with tracking techniques in 3D and Nuke. So that goes without saying about the sugar pass. So let me know more information about that. But like I said, to reiterate, my suggestion is to have essentially you'd have two additional layers. You would have a black and white kind of mask, a matte layer that would act as matting out where you want the sugar to be on these trees. And then I would do another layer pass of the sugar texture on these trees. And then in composite, you can blend it together using the mat that you created, and have full control over it. So that's how I would recommend it. And the other thing I was saying about these trees is bring back some of that nice texture. It's falling a little bit flat now. So I'd love that to come back. And as I'm on the subjects of the trees, I love that you modeled these sprinkles out. Just be careful about intersections like this here. I feel like sinking this in would even work better. Like this I'm not bothered by because it's sunk in, but here I can see like part of it's out, parts in. And I know I'm nitpicking at this point, but these are like things that you might want to, well, let's watch it as we go. So now that I'm staring at it, I see it. So it's just that one really. So just fix that one yellow one right there. And overall, I think this is definitely working better. I think you can I'm looking at it. I feel like I've also lost the texture in here. I wonder if, I mean, you tell me, is it the displacement? Because I'm seeing it kind of here in the background. I wonder if, since you limited the bump with the displacement, it kind of affected the overall base here. And if that's the case, then I would kind of bring that back and adjust it specifically. I was speaking only to the trunks before, so I would adjust it for that, because now both these are looking a little bit flat. Um, the other thing I'll say is, let's go to the house. You mentioned that, you know, those holes are getting lost, and they're definitely getting lost in there. But I love, you know, you're starting to get the detail. One thing I'll say is, like, I think the graham cracker can go a little bit darker, um, in color and shade, but also in the cracks. Like, give it some more variation. If you look at your graham cracker reference, you know, it's not just one solid color, right? You'll have like variation, especially in the cracks, to get that more depth to it. So I would go ahead and add that variation in the color map to really get it in there. And I think you'll see almost instantly you'll get that feel. And I say to go a little bit darker on the graham cracker, because this is where I'm looking at your shot, and this refers to also the change in her, how you changed her color to, I think it was so she bounces off from, you know, that background tree, which she definitely does now. But something I want you to think about is your overall color palette. I don't know if you have looked at some kind of style guides at some point in animation. You definitely see, it's almost like interior design when you see a room and you see these color palettes. You know, they have like color swatches, and that's the guide that they go by to ensure that, you know, the room is all aesthetically cohesive, and it's kind of setting a mood. And that's essentially what you're doing too. And it's also kind of minimizes the amount of colors, so it's more focused and not all over the place. And I feel like here you could start to benefit from that, because this scene is so fun and colorful, but you still want it to be really well designed in the color, right? You don't want to go too far from, like, you don't want to have one like overly saturated versus really desaturated. You want the colors to work well together. And I'm saying this because I feel like, you know, in an effort to detach the character from the background, I feel like the color palette is suffering a little bit. Like, we're getting like too many colors. It's it's like aesthetically going all over the place, and we want to hone it in even more. Funny enough, I actually brought this up. I have this image here, and okay, so this is an image that my 5-year-old daughter just did today, and it amazed me because she just walked up and she did this drawing, and then she showed me this little sticker that she drew behind it. This is the back of a sticker, and she's like, and these are my colors that I used. And I was like, what, you just made a color palette for your, essentially like a style guide for her drawing. And it just amazed me, and I was like, why did you do that? And then she's like, I thought it was beautiful, it was pretty to see the colors that I use. And like she should teach you, right? Like, she teaches me all the time, but like, this is essentially what I'm talking about. Like, she basically took her core colors that she did, she put them together and made sure they looked really nice together, and then she colored it. I think she might have done this after I don't know. I'd be extra impressed if she did this before she did this drawing. So this was like the previs, and then this was the drawing. I didn't see her actually draw it, so I don't know. I can ask her later. But either way, I mean, this is what we're going for. I'd love you to sit down and pick your colors, pick your color palette. So kind of take your shot right now. Come on. Take this shot right now, and let's see what your color palette looks like, and let's minimize it to, you know, the core 6 colors or something, so we're not all over the place and it's like super cohesive. So when it comes to lighting, it's just gonna work really well together. um, So that I'd love you to do. The ground, when I was talking about the ground, I was mentioning like putting texture on the ground, but one, I love this. I love that you put the little the pathway here. I think it really bridges it. It adds, a little variety, a little dimension, a little change within this kind of flatness. And I think that works really well. The thing that can work here too is along with the color palette. Let's see what your color palette looks like, and let's see how we can incorporate this ground into it, because it does take a lot of real estate, this ground color, right? And right now I'm seeing, if I'm looking at colors, it's like a very greenish yellow, and it's very close to this gingerbread house. Um, but it's not evoking, like, it's feeling, I don't know, when I see this greenish yellow, I'm not thinking like happy, I'm almost thinking sickly. So I don't know, this is something you want to play with, and this is something that you could also do, I will say, in a draw over, a paint over. Like, you don't have to do this in CG with renders each time. Like, this is definitely something that can be addressed in a paint over, just simple color corrections. You can do it in 3D too and just render still frames to get it down. But I'd love to see that and just really hone in on your color palette. Because right now, I do think that her colors are starting to go a little bit, like the purples here, it's like a little bit too bright and saturated. I don't know. There's something about it that's just not meshing with me, to be honest with you. And I think it's just like too many colors going on. So that's why I think we should stop right there and address that and simplify. And then the other thing I'll ask is, what is the texture meant to be on this roof? Because I'm feeling like, we're getting that softness from the cookie and the icing and whatnot. And all of a sudden, this is feeling like really shiny and almost steel-like. So it doesn't feel like it would go with a gingerbread house. So let's get reference on that and tie that in together. Yeah, so let's start there. I think it's going really well, and I can't wait to see what you have going on. And yeah, now that I'm looking at it, like, you still have that nice texture here in this tree. I think you must have just brought down the displacement, and that's what caused it to lose that nice kind of texture that you have going on here. So let's try to bring that back. It might require the texture map being a little bit different for the trunk versus the tree. Okay, with that, I think it's looking great. And the best part about this, I will say, I mean, this is like not lit at all. We're only doing shaders, and by doing all this kind of pre-work on the shading part, like when you light it, you're gonna be amazed. It's like, oh, there's a shaping and but it's gonna all come together. And then, everything's not set in stone. There's a balance of, if this is your own, like, if you're not working in a big studio setting where you have like a lot of artists working on the same shot with the same shaders, this is where you have the liberty, if you're working on this by yourself too, is like, I think once for you, we hone down like the very base like principles, like the color palette, I think is going to be a huge one, and then just some like the base bumps and everything like that. I think it'd be a good idea to start lighting in a way, like start placing in the rough lighting, so then we can start seeing how it's going to play, how it's going to shape, and then you can adjust accordingly to that too, because it is like kind of a give and take with the lighting and materials. It's great to get the core of the materials, but we're never going to get perfect. There's always going to be some kind of adjustments once you get in there and you start lighting. So I want you to be aware of that too. Yeah, so let's do this. I can't wait to see the updates. And yeah, let's do it. I'm excited to do a color palette with you too, because I think that's going to really help, hone you in, direct you, and be a really great guide moving forward. And especially, and then you can use it for the interior too. Yeah. Okay. Great job. And I will talk to you soon. Bye.